Most people think they struggle with modern life because they're behind. But for people who grew up in the 1970s, the real reason is neurological. Your nervous system was trained for a world that moved differently. There's a quiet feeling many people have but rarely explain. It's the sense that the world didn't just change, it changed faster than you did. If you grew up in the 1970s, you weren't raised in the world we live in now. You were raised before it, before constant connection, before digital life, before everything was immediate. And that matters more than most people realize, because your nervous system learned its rules in a slower, quieter world. A world with space, limits, and time to think. Today, that creates a quiet conflict. You can live in the modern world, but it often feels rushed, loud, or unnecessary. Not overwhelming, just out of step. This isn't nostalgia, and it's not resistance to change. It's calibration. Growing up in the 1970s meant freedom with boundaries. You went outside, you stayed out for hours, you explored, but you were expected back. You were trusted, not monitored. No phones, no tracking, no constant checking in. Psychologically, this mattered. You learned independence without being abandoned, responsibility without being watched. When something went wrong, help wasn't instant, but it existed somewhere nearby. Your nervous system learned something important. You can handle things on your own, and support doesn't need to hover to be real. Boredom wasn't fixed right away. TV had schedules. Sometimes nothing was on. Sometimes you just waited. There was no quick escape. So when boredom arrived, you sat with it. You found something to do, or you didn't. That trained patience. Your brain learned that quiet moments weren't dangerous, that nothing happening didn't mean something was wrong. That's why today, silence doesn't scare you. You don't need constant noise to feel okay, not because you're disciplined, but because your nervous system remembers this as normal. This is where the difference really shows. Technology entered your life slowly. It wasn't everywhere. It wasn't personal. It didn't follow you. You learned how to use stimulation and how to leave it. The world didn't disappear when you stepped away. That's why being constantly reachable can feel uncomfortable now, not because you dislike technology, but because your system remembers life without constant access.
Your childhood was physical. You fell. You got hurt. You learned your limits. Fear wasn't imagined, it was real, and then it passed. This trained your sense of risk. You learned the difference between discomfort and danger, between mistakes and real problems. That's why, under pressure, you often stay steady. Your body checks first, then reacts. Not because you're fearless, but because fear has context for you. Socially, you grew up before everything was recorded. Mistakes faded. Embarrassment passed. You weren't always being watched. You learned who you were privately, not publicly. That's why oversharing can feel strange, why constant self-promotion doesn't feel natural. Expression for you was never proof of worth. Waiting was part of life. You waited for shows, you waited for letters, you waited for answers, and it was normal. This shaped patience. Good things took time. Satisfaction came from follow-through, not speed. That's why instant rewards can feel empty. Not bad, just incomplete. But there was a cost. You learned to handle things early. You learned to manage quietly. This made you capable, but it also made asking for help feel unfamiliar. Strength came first. Vulnerability came later, if at all. This is the hidden trade-off. Today, you may feel a growing mismatch. The world feels louder than it needs to be, faster than it should be. Everything is shared, everything is reacted to, and something in you pauses. This isn't resistance, it's incompatibility. Your nervous system was shaped for steadiness, patience, and depth. Modern life rewards speed, noise, and constant response. So when you slow down, it can be misunderstood, but it's not a flaw, it's an adaptation. The 1970s aren't coming back, and they don't need to, but the wiring they gave you still matters.
You don't need to become louder to belong. You don't need to move faster to stay relevant. The work now isn't to erase how you grew up. It's to integrate it. Keep the calm, keep the patience, keep the self-trust, but allow more support, more openness, and more connection than you were taught to need. Your nervous system isn't broken. It's not outdated. It's pre-digital, shaped by a world that taught depth before speed. And that still matters. If this resonated, it's not because you're nostalgic. It's because your nervous system recognized itself. If you grew up in the 1970s, comment pre-digital, not for visibility, but to remind yourself that your calm, your patience, and your depth still belong in this world.